Distinguished executive strategy leaders, industry captains, and of course, fellow professionals, we would like to warmly welcome all of you. In our traditional parlance, we say Akwaba. Tonight, it's not just an inauguration of an association, but we are activating a movement that will dictate the pace and the direction of this country and the continent as a whole.
This evening is a response to a simple research document I came across. And that Boston Consulting Group's research sought to suggest that managers at the lower level have as much as 72% of them not understanding or appreciating what strategy is. And we felt that we could respond to that gap, that shortfall. That is our greatest motivation for bringing together practitioners of strategy to advance the cause of strategy practice, particularly in corporate Africa.
By developing managers and professionals and executives in strategy, from strategic leadership to strategic planning to strategy development to control. That is one key thematic area we don't joke with in the executive class, strategy control. At this juncture, we want to do a launch of the professional association. Officially, the name is Strategy Professionals Ghana.
4, 3, 2, 1. This is SPG.
are looking forward to having organizations build giant businesses in Africa. And we thought that one of the greatest tools we could use to do that is when there is key strategy knowledge among leaders who drive these organizations.
Are you planning on moving your career to a strategic and policy-making position, or perhaps to the C-suite executive level? If that is the case, then you need to start thinking from a strategic perspective. Welcome to the Institute of Leadership and Strategy and to our executive certification in strategy. This course will tremendously increase your value, impact, and managerial career and prepare you for senior leadership roles. Sign up for our next cohort and join the over 500 managers and professionals who have gone through our executive strategy development. See you in our next session.
This Institute of Leadership and Strategy, as you may have already seen or heard about us, and we are passionate about developing managers and corporate leaders across Africa. And so once again, we want to welcome you. We are excited to have you here. This is the Certified Strategy Professional course.
In any case, strategy started from the military. You know that? The strategy emanated from the military. There are a lot of things we are going to put together, and then we will call it a strategy, not just a goal we have set for ourselves. The courage to choose is the heart of strategy. Why does choice require courage? I normally say any change that is imposed is a change that will most likely be opposed.
Yes, my name is Mbemba Kabinakweta from Guinea Conakry. When it comes to organization, everything is about strategy. Being part of this program is a great privilege, and I hope by the end of this program, I'll be a very good strategist that could take companies beyond their success.
Very glad to be part of this strategic leadership program. Contribution to myself in terms of leading a team that is across 22 countries. So I'm looking forward to the impactful that this program will have on me. Thank you.
I want to attend this and learn this course and use it to project the future of Ghana Plus.
Now, I had my master's in strategic management and leadership from KNUST. So when I saw the executive leadership strategy program online, I said this is a better choice or option for me to get a certification in what I have already done for my master's program. So I thought it wise to just enroll on, and this is my first session, and I must confess, I love it. I'm going to be here. I'm going to recommend zillions of people to ILS. So this is the best place to be. If you are a strategy-minded person or professional, look no further. ILS is your go-to. Thank you.
Distinguished executive strategy leaders, industry captains, and of course, fellow professionals, we would like to warmly welcome all of you. In our traditional parlance, we say Akwaba. Tonight, it's not just an inauguration of an association, but we are activating a movement that will dictate the pace and the direction of this country and the continent as a whole.
This evening is a response to a simple research document I came across. And that Boston Consulting Group's research sought to suggest that managers at the lower level have as much as 72% of them not understanding or appreciating what strategy is. And we felt that we could respond to that gap, that shortfall, That is our greatest motivation for bringing together practitioners of strategy to advance the cause of strategy practice, particularly in corporate Africa.
By developing managers and professionals and executives in leading strategy, from strategic leadership to strategic planning to strategy development to control. That is one key thematic area we don't joke with in the executive class, strategy control. At this juncture, we want to do a launch of the Professional Association. Officially, the name is Strategy Professionals Ghana.
4, 3, 2, 1. This is SPG.
We are looking forward to having organizations build giant businesses in Africa. And we thought that one of the greatest tools we could use to do that is when there is key strategy knowledge among leaders who drive these organizations.
Are you planning on moving your career to a strategic and policy-making position, or perhaps to the C-suite executive level? If that is the case, then you need to start thinking from a strategic perspective. Welcome to the Institute of Leadership and Strategy and to our executive certification in strategy. This course will tremendously increase your value, impact, and managerial career and prepare you for senior leadership roles. Sign up for our next cohort and join the over 500 managers and professionals who have gone through our executive strategy development. See you in our next session.
This Institute of Leadership and Strategy, as you may have already seen or heard about us, and we are passionate about developing managers and corporate leaders across Africa. And so once again, we want to welcome you. We are excited to have you here. This is the Certified Strategy Professional course.
In any case, strategy started from the military. You know that? The strategy emanated from the military. There are a lot of things we are going to put together, and then we will call it a strategy, not just a goal we have set for ourselves. The courage to choose is the heart of strategy. Why does choice require courage? I normally say any change that is imposed is a change that will most likely be opposed.
Yes, my name is Mbemba Kabinakweta from Conakry. When it comes to organization, everything is about strategy. Being part of this program is a great privilege, and I hope by the end of this program, I'll be a very good strategist that could take companies beyond their success.
Very glad to be part of this strategic leadership program. Contribution to myself in terms of leading a team that is across 22 countries. So I'm looking forward to the impactful that this program will have on me. Thank you.
I want to attend this and learn this course and use it to project the future of Ghana Plus.
Now, I had my master's in strategic management and leadership from KNUST. So when I saw the executive leadership strategy program online, I said this is a better choice or option for me to get a certification in what I have already done for my master's program. So I thought it wise to just enroll on, and this is my first session, and I must confess, I love it. I'm going to be here. I'm going to recommend zillions of people to ILS. So this is the best place to be. If you are a strategy-minded person or professional, look no further. ILS is your go-to. Thank you.
Right, okay. A very good afternoon to everyone under the sound of my voice. My name is Jeff Bassey, and I'm going to be your host and moderator for this afternoon's rather important conversation on how operational efficiency, operational excellence can serve as a competitive advantage in driving your corporate strategy. A very good day, good evening, depending on which part of the world you are joining us. We have some 300 persons, close to 300 persons online at the moment. We have had some 600 persons registered for this afternoon's engagement. And in due course, I'm sure the rest of our colleagues will join us as we drive the conversation. Now, in my work for several years, as a consultant, I've been involved in the creation of organizational visions and creating ambitions for the organization. One of the greatest challenges that I normally will come across is the challenge of closing the gap between strategy and operations. It looks like strategy has become that prestigious exercise that a few, executive managers and senior managers in organizations will gather, normally out of station, to put together for the organization. So typically, you walk into an organization of about 3,000, 5,000. You have some 30 to 40, persons, who are very senior officers in the organization involved in drafting strategy. After they must have been done in creating an ambition, a destination for the organization, say for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, the real challenge then becomes, how do we back up this strategy, this business model with everyday operational activities to be effective and efficient at delivering on product promises to the customer? Normally, the strategy, and for that matter, the long-term ambition, can get staff so excited and motivated. But most of the time, the discipline to close that gap, that's operational gap between strategy and execution, becomes the Herculean task. So often, companies will create visions and state destinations, excite their staff. We would normally display these things at the reception of the organization. Some of the time we print them in card. Very recently, I even see organizations print some of these things on T-shirt. They have become screensavers as to the desired ambition where the organization intends to see itself in, say, 5 years, 10 years. I mean, the horizon of strategic planning period is always changing because of the VUCA business world. However, these things that we print on walls, on cards, on T-shirts, screensavers, normally do not stay in the heart of employees for that longer time. So after the euphoria, after the ecstasy, after the festival of celebrating the strategy, we got to hit the ground running. And most times, departments may have clear goals that are communicated at the unit levels, but we simply still fail to close that gap. Boston Consulting Group's research sought to suggest that 48.6% of all organizations that go through the prestigious exercise of developing strategies and they go for strategy sessions normally will not have the strategy seeing the light of day. I mean, this year we have guided some 36 organizations in developing, their strategic plans or just reformulating their strategy for the 2026 financial year. But even as we do that, how many of these organizations are able to actualize this strategy? This afternoon, we have a key expert who is going to guide us, and he's actually an expert in both strategy and operations. He's going to guide us in how we're going to close that gap. Quickly before I bring in the the resource person, my name is Jeff Basse. I happen to be founder of the Institute of Leadership and Strategy. We are located at East Legon, Accra, Ghana, and currently I'm serving as the rector for the institution. And as I mentioned earlier on, I'm going to serve as your moderator. At the Institute of Leadership and Strategy, just as our name connotes, we specialize, in executive leadership development as well as, strategy. As an executive center, we transform managers, into enterprise capable leaders to lead organizations, much as we also lead, strategy for organization. Our core specialization spans from executive development to strategy and financial capability, bench strengthening, governance and boardroom readiness preparation, enterprise transformation advisory, and then leadership impact. We have been through some 259 organizations in consulting capacity, and in some instances in facilitating their strategy sessions or their leadership training. Most recently, the Parliament House of Ghana had partnered us as trainers. So we train members of Parliament as well as directors of Parliament. We also do same for the Ghana Military Academy. We also facilitate sessions for Bank of Ghana, for Ghana Revenue Authority, for the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority, Ghana Stock Exchange. On the private front, we have been with Tallow Oil, we've been with Newmont, we've been with Coca-Cola, we've been with Casapreco, Hollard Insurance, Prudential Life Insurance, a few organizations here and there among the 259 or so organizations that we have consulted for. I will quickly introduce our guest speaker for today, after which we would take off with a session in earnest. So we actually are going to, have an interaction with the guest speaker, after which we would also listen to your questions. And so if you do have some questions, just use the chat console. Otherwise, you can also send a quick WhatsApp of your questions to our hotline, 0244 268672. I'm going to take that number again. Our hotline is 0244 268672. Once you have any questions, you can send to that number. A number of you also contact us for our certified strategy professional course. How do you become a certified strategy a certified professional in strategy, where you earn an executive certificate in strategy, and then also on your passing of the global certification exam in strategy, you become a CSP, certified strategy professional. The same line that I just announced is the number that you reach out to, and every single information will be shared with you. Our next immediate cohort, which happens to be the 10th cohort, would start on 23rd of May 23. And so admission is ongoing, 0244 268672. Folks, this afternoon we have a rather very experienced corporate executive in the person of Mr. Adolf Pega, who is going to walk us through how to close the gap between strategy execution. How do we ensure that strategy doesn't just hang up there as a prestigious document known to only executive leadership within the organization, but will cascade down or will trickle down to everyday operational activity, and for that matter, operational excellence as a competitive advantage. Mr. Adolf Pega is a senior executive with over 20 years of experience in banking and leadership. His experience spans, from business development to relationship management, risk management, executive leadership, strategy, and operations. He has led at the highest level of corporate, including serving as chief risk officer and interim managing director, and currently the executive director and chief strategy and operations officer for ABSA Bank Ghana. He brings a real-world execution experience, and let me emphasize that not theory, but the practice behind the theoretical strategy we all learn in school. So this is the caliber of person who is going to take us through the session today. And at this point, I want to kindly bring in our August resource person, Mr. Adolf Berger. Welcome and a very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Jeff, and good afternoon to all the colleagues and friends on the line. Happy to be here.
Thank you. On behalf of all of our August listeners, we want to say a big thank you to you for taking time out of your busy schedule to share this experiential knowledge on strategy with us. So, Adolf, let's take off. I'm going to start from a very simple note. Operational excellence is normally a term many people hear often, but it can also feel quite abstract. From your perspective, what does it really mean, and why should leaders care about operational excellence?
Thank you, Jeff, for that. Operational excellence is effectively what brings the strategy to life. Customers don't experience strategy. They experience the delivery of the strategy. And what brings that to life is the operational processes that the organization has put in to deliver that. So if I'm to give you a definition of operational excellence, it's the systematic approach to deliver value to the customer, to drive continuous improvement, and generally to drive improvement in performance. Presented in another way, you can describe it as the ability to consistently deliver superior value to the customer at optimal cost. So generally, this is how we define operational excellence. There are some key elements that underpin operational excellence. So, for example, efficiency clearly is one of them. Reliability is another. Speed and quality they are generally the common ones you will find. But depending on the industry, sometimes you will see safety also as an added element in there. And so generally this, what I said earlier, is the definition, and the teams I've just mentioned are some of the key features of an operationally efficient process or system.
Thank you so much. Adolf, as a strategy expert myself, I am always on the lookout for, other experts' thoughts, and for that matter, what they have to think about strategy. And fortunately for me, I came across one of the articles I would consider one of the best when it comes to operational excellence, which happened to be authored by yourself, how operational excellence can be a competitive advantage. And in that article, you made a very strong, point in your, you made a very strong point as to why operational excellence is now a source for competitive advantage. What has actually changed? It used not to be the top. What has actually changed? Why you would, argue vehemently in that article as operational excellence being a solid or a strong, as a source of competitive advantage?
Thanks again. And in my view, what has changed is the benchmark for comparison, right? That is one. The other thing that has also changed is the bridge between information that the company has of itself and the information that the customers have. You can describe that as the narrowing of information asymmetry. So let me deal with the first one. The basis of comparison has changed. because when customers are comparing their experience, they do not only compare you to your competitor, they are likely to compare you to a similar experience they have had somewhere. So, for example, someone is ordering food. It's seamless, quick, and fast. Yet you take your banking app and you are struggling. The customer immediately is comparing the two. But one would think, what is the relationship between food and banking? But for the customer, it is the experience that he has just had, which he's expecting to be consistent throughout, and then the other person or entity or firm is disappointed. So straight away, he's able to say, even a food company is able to do this, but look at what my bank is doing. It may well be that that is what all the banks are doing, but the customer doesn't know. Typically, you are their banker and you are the one they are dealing with. So that basis of comparison itself has changed because of the duplicity of service providers, duplicity of similar, not the same product providers that we have. The other one, as I said, is the availability of information. Because of social media, when the customer's experience is frustrated, it is vented on social media. There are places that the customer can reach the service experience they've had with organizations or the experiences they've had with using various products. So what it means is that if the customers consistently vent disappointing experience, straight away, others who are considering similar products are not likely to consider that product or service, and which means that you'll be losing your place in the competition in the marketplace. It is for this reason that I strongly believe that operational excellence is a key competitive advantage that needs to be watched and managed by firms. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you. That is quite well said. And I'm sure our August listeners are already doing a lot of learning on the critical importance of closing the gap between the prestigious strategy, I like to call it these days, because everybody or every company like to associate with the word, that strategy and closing in the gap. Now we're going to get into the trust of the conversation, the meat. And maybe to be kind to you, I'm going to give you a bit more time to respond to the next question, and that have to do with defining the building blocks. Out of what would you consider, if operational excellence is that critical, what would you consider as the core elements leaders need to focus on in driving operational excellence behind corporate strategy?
Thank you. There are about 6 or 7 core elements I'll highlight. But before that, let me get these ones out of the way. They are all you will call the necessary conditions for operational excellence to be delivered in any firm. Then I'll come to what I classify as the sufficient ones. Strategic clarity and the fact that you have clarified your strategy, you have aligned your organization, people understand and know what they are solving for. Your vision and mission is aligned with excellence, and therefore people understand what they are doing and why it should be done. The role of leadership, the ownership, remember what leadership celebrates and reward becomes culture. And so the role of leadership must be firmly established, they must be aligned, and on the basis of which we can then delve into the rest, what you can call the meat of the conversation. And back to your question. So largely, I think the first point is around customer centricity or customer focus. You are solving and delivering value to the customer. And so that is where we should start from. If we want to be operationally excellent, the question is, what does the customer want? What value are we delivering to the customer? What are the customer's pain points? What are their complaints? What are their concerns? And if you pay attention to this, you will see customer complaint as an input in you revising your process or trimming them to be efficient enough to deliver that outcome. The other one is generally classified as process efficiency in general. This is where the process you have in place to deliver service to the client. First of all, let me step back. There are 3 or 4 elements around which the answer is going to anchor. Customer, people, which is the people working in the organization, processes and systems. So these 4 themes are what is going to drive the outcomes when you are driving operational efficiency, operational excellence. And so I've mentioned the customer earlier. So on the process side, you must make sure your processes are efficient. In other words, you are removing duplications and redundancies. Organizations, particularly that have been on operation for long, over time, layers build up because they've been operating for long. Sometimes some things happen, they introduce some process, they used to run some old product or service. It has its own process that has then found its way to become the base of everything that they do. But the question is it relevant today? Without those activities or processes, will the firm still be able to deliver? And if yes, then those processes must be removed. Then we also come to standardization. Standardization helps the customer to form an expectation. It makes your delivery, whether it's product or service, predictable to the customer. They know what to expect because you've standardized them. Irrespective of where they encounter the product, irrespective of where they encounter the service, they are more likely to have generally the same experience with the product or service. And therefore, standardization is one of the pillars around which you deliver operational excellence. Then, using a scientific approach, or we can simply call it being data-driven in decision-making. I like to call it a scientific approach, which means that you observe the feedback of the customer, the behavior of the customer, trends in the industry, in the market. You can do pilots, you can do experiments, and depending on the industry, it takes various forms. So let's not think of any complex thing. If you think that when you start wearing blue shirt, customers will be happy, don't suddenly say all your operations, all your salespeople should wear blue shirt. You can say that, okay, this particular unit, this particular day, we are wearing blue shirts. Let's observe, let's document, let's account for how the customer will be reacting, on the basis of which you have a lot more data points to take your decision. So you should be data-driven in your decisioning. Then you should put in place measures to drive continuous improvement, because it's not just an event, because this is something you must be doing continually, if not continuously. Because when you go through a major review and you have the most optimal process, after a certain period, that process itself may become old or may be overtaken by developments in the market. Customers' own experience of the product or service, or even their own formulation of what they expect from the service may have changed. And therefore, you should have measures in place to drive continuous improvement. Then there is the element of people and culture. Operational excellence is as much a cultural thing, and which means that it has to be behavioral, the kind of incentives you put in place to drive the behavior you want to see, what must be rewarded and celebrated, and how you train and develop staff in order that they can be empowered to own and resolve. These are all key elements around which you build operational excellence. And so I will pause there and take the rest of the questions, and hopefully some further insights may come from our colleagues on the line that allows us to further expand on some of these matters. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Sharing a lot of experiential knowledge with us. I noticed that in your response, you were quite very firm on customer centric approach to operational excellence, that really customers don't know and do not care about what organization strategy is. At the end of the day, they want solutions
provided to their problems, efficiently as much as possible. So it's good to know and refreshing enough to know that you focus a lot more on the customer. Mentioning customer-centric approach as your first pillar, many organizations claim to be customer-centric. What does it actually look like operationally when we say that customer is what determines our operational activities? What does it mean to be customer-centric operationally?
That would simply mean developing processes from the customer's perspective, and not necessarily based on the organization's internal structures and processes. Because indeed, if that is done, even your internal structures and processes would have been designed from the customer's perspective. What, in practical sense, what you would do is you would journey backwards from the customer, you walk into your firm, working your processes, and that gives you a view of what the customer expects and therefore how you should design your processes. But if you look at it from you as an organization outward to the customer, that becomes more of designing it from your internal perspective. So simply put, when we say an organization is customer focused, everything they do is focused on delivering an extra value to the customer, and their processes are designed from the customer's perspective, and how the solution is designed largely from the customer's perspective. It's not a simple thing because who is that customer? It's not like the customer is one person, and that is why you have to invest time in engaging the customer. There are various ways of doing that. As I mentioned, customer complaints are one source. Customer focus group engagement is another. Frequent visits to your customers are also another one. Direct engagement with your frontline staff are all means by which you get these feedback. Then periodic surveys give you insights that you can then build into how to design your value proposition to your customers. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you so much indeed. I wanted to spend a bit of time on processes and efficiency. And so let's talk about processes. Why do you consider them to be so central to operational excellence? If we are delivering on product promises to the customer, fair enough. Why mustn't it be done haphazardly? Why is processes critical to the question of operational excellence?
Sure. Because processes deliver the outcome of the service or product that we have. We want, or the customer is looking for. If I use an example of, for example, a hospital, when you go to a hospital, sometimes you go somewhere and they'll pull out your card and details. Then they will direct you to a desk that they will take your temperature. They may also direct you to another one that they will take your pressure. And then you may now go and wait somewhere again. You go to the doctor at some point. So that flow, you realize that each start point consumes time, and each touch point keeps the customer frustrated. Because what are you there for? You are not there to experience the process. You are there to receive diagnosis or guidance around how to deal with your ailment. So your focus is to get to the doctor as quickly as possible. And if that is done, your focus is to get to the dispensary and get the medicine as quickly as possible. Anything in between, as far as a patient is concerned, is a waste of time. But for the hospital, it is necessary to deliver the service to the customer. In that case, the hospital must be focused on minimizing the processes that the customer goes through that are not central or core to what they expect to deliver, to receive as much as possible. And so these are some of the things when it comes to processes. They affect the experience that the customer has of the product or of the solution.
Thank you. I see loads of questions coming from our audience, but before we get into the questions, let me touch on a few more questions to you. Now, when we talk about processing, now this whole conversation is happening within the larger spectrum of of driving corporate strategy. Now, my best definition for developing a competitive strategy is relating the organization to its environment. So the environment of the organization itself changes from time to time. And like we always say, when the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end to that establishment is in sight. So yes, I do know that strategy itself is not cast in stone. It's emergent, it is fluid, and must be reviewed from time to time. But you see, the moment you introduce the word processes, there is then the assumption that there is some standardization, if you may, to bring sanity. And that is why I think that you should address the question around standardization versus flexibility. Now, some leaders really worry about standardization, reducing flexibility. How do you balance the two when we are hard to standardize to follow a process against the need for flexibility in order to deliver on the organization's strategy?
Sure, I think that's a good one. It's often one of the popular critiques of standardization. But in my view, standardization doesn't eliminate flexibility. If you understand the essence of what we are solving when it comes to operational excellence. So standardization creates the foundation or the base around which the customer can form a certain minimum expectation. And therefore, they can consistently predict what should expect as a result of that, either through past experience, through experiences you've communicated, or experiences of other clients who have experienced either the product or the service. However, if we are conscious of the limitations of standardization, then there is room for flexibility. So, for example, you go to a restaurant and they have pack orders. Okay, we have fried rice and chicken, this amount, one chicken, this amount, 2 pieces of chicken, and this amount plus an egg, right? That's a standardization. However, you want something extra. Can you add this for me? Can you do that for me? Can you do that for me? All the extras you want, they should be flexible and if they indeed understand the prioritization of the customer, then they should be able to then deliver that extra to you. And that is the flexibility mindset that has to align any business that is driving standardization as part of its operational excellence measure. Standardization is important because it helps you to know when there are deviations. And if there are deviations, you'll be able to pick it up quickly and resolve. Otherwise, you are just there, you are assuming things are fine until the customer comes to complain to you. You do not know that things are wrong, and that should not be the case. Part of the effects of standardization is it helps you to self-identify, to troubleshoot very quickly when things are deviating. So if someone comes to a restaurant, and because we know how we've standardized things, it should take not just about 10 minutes to deliver their food, and you see someone waiting for 20 minutes, then you should be able to question, why is this happening? Why is the deviation happening? And that allows you to fix the challenges that are leading to that deviation. So if you don't standardize, then every outlier, every deviation is acceptable. However, standardization allows you to be consistent, but you should have the mindset of flexibility to take out the exceptions that the customer may need and address them specifically. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. It's getting quite interesting. As I mentioned, we'll be taking questions from our audience, but we'll have a quick break. And when we resume from that break, we'll be focusing on areas of the role of data and technology in operational excellence driving corporate strategy. We'll be looking at the bit of people and culture. Then we look at the heart of the conversation on implementation, and then we'll be closing on the role of leadership. But just quickly before we get into into that bit, this program is being run by the Strategy Professionals Ghana in collaboration with the Institute of Leadership and Strategy. And we just take a quick break, and then when we resume the session, we take some of your questions, and then we bring back the resource person to take us through the rest of the conversation before we call it a day.
Distinguished executive strategy leaders, industry captains, and of course, fellow professionals, we would like to warmly welcome all of you. In our traditional parlance, we say Akwaba. Tonight, it's not just an inauguration of an association, but we are activating a movement that will dictate the pace and the direction of this country and the continent as a whole.
This evening is a response to a simple research document I came across. And that Boston Consulting Group's research sought to suggest that managers at the lower level have as much as 72% of them not understanding or appreciating what strategy is. And we thought that we could respond to that gap, that shortfall. That is our greatest motivation for bringing together practitioners of strategy to advance the cause of strategy practice, particularly in corporate Africa.
By developing managers and professionals and executives in leading strategy, from strategic leadership to strategic planning to strategy development to control. That is one key thematic area we don't joke with in the executive class, strategy control. At this juncture, we want to do a launch of the professional association. Officially, the name is Strategy Professionals Ghana.
4, 3, 2, 1. This is SPG.
Looking forward to having organizations build giant businesses in Africa. And we thought that one of the greatest tools we could use to do that is when there is key strategy knowledge among leaders who drive these organizations.
Are you planning on moving your career to a strategic and policy-making position, or perhaps to the C-suite executive level? If that is the case, then you need to start thinking from a strategic perspective.
Welcome to the Institute of Leadership and Strategy and to our executive certification in strategy.
This course will tremendously increase your value, impact, and managerial career and prepare you for senior leadership roles. Sign up for our next cohort and join the over 500 managers and professionals who have gone through our executive strategy development. See you in our next session.
This Institute of Leadership and Strategy, as you may have already seen or heard about us, and we are passionate about developing managers and corporate leaders across Africa. And so once again, we want to welcome you. We are excited to have you here. This is the Certified Strategy Professional course.
In any case, strategy started from the military. You know that? The strategy emanated from the military. There are a lot of things we are going to put together, and then we will call it a strategy, not just a goal we have set for ourselves. The courage to choose is the heart of strategy. Why does choice require courage? I normally say any change that is imposed is a change that will most likely be opposed.
Yes, my name is Mbemba Kabinakweta from Conakry. When it comes to organization, everything is about strategy. Being part of this program is a great privilege, and I hope by the end of this program, I'll be a very good strategist that could take companies beyond their their success.
Very glad to be part of this strategic leadership program. Contribution to myself in terms of leading a team that is across 22 countries. So I'm looking forward to the impactful that this program will have on me. Thank you.
I want to attend this and learn this course and project and use it to project the future of Ghana Post.
Now, I had my master's in strategic management and leadership from KNUST. So when I saw the executive leadership strategy program online, I said this is a better choice or option for me to get a certification in what I have already done for my master's program. So I thought it wise to just enroll on, and this is my first session, and I must confess, I love it. I'm going to be here. I'm going to recommend zillions of people to ILS. So this is the best place to be. If you are a strategy-minded person or professional, look no further. ILS is your go-to. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time, all of our August listeners on this call. About some 400 persons on the call. And just before the resource person comes to respond to some questions that have come already, let me mention to you that this program is being brought to you by the Strategy Professionals Ghana in collaboration with the Institute of Leadership and Strategy. At the Institute of Leadership and Strategy, our focus is on executive leadership and then professional certification in strategy. Our next immediate cohort, which is cohort number 10 for the professional strategy program, takes off on May 23. We run physical tuition on Saturdays only and the online on Sundays only. So every weekend you decide which of the two options suit your schedule. You have the liberty to switch between the two options. And it's an 8-week course that prepares you, one, for your key knowledge and confidence in strategy, and then also for those of you who intend to be globally certified. You go through modules as one, understanding the environment of strategy. That is where we connect the dots for you from corporate level strategy, cascading down to business level to the functional levels. Module number 2 is on the strategic planning process. How do you actually develop a strategic plan, not just put together annual goals in a Kosombo or Ada, and then you call it a strategic plan. Module number 3 looks at when you put a strategy together, say a 5-year, 10-year, every year you have to go back and reformulate the strategy because of the changes within the business environment. Then you're going to go through how to run competitive and growth strategies. You go through change management and organizational transformation, because change management itself, I always say, is a leadership and strategy agenda. A lot of external shocks are going to hit on the strategy due to changes in customer preferences, in government legislation, in economic conditions, crisis, competitive analysis, etc. Then you also go through aligning people and people culture and strategy. We spend quite some good time on strategic governance and, most importantly, strategy execution and control. And we have key industry chiefs and resource persons who facilitate these courses. Myself, Dr. Samuel Segla also is there. Mr. Adolf Pegan, the resource person on call now, is one of the key facilitators. Mr. Kwekwa Ochi, who was the immediate past CEO for Talo Oil, former head of strategy for Anglo Gold Ashanti, also delivers with us. Wing Commander Samuel Alote, board chairman for Jospon Group and former executive of Standard Chartered Bank, Mr. Michael Abiu, who happens to be the current national president for Chartered Institute of Marketing Ghana, a serious strategy expert, sits on Telecel board, and also CEO for MGA Consulting. Dr. Patrick Fishen, who headed strategy for Standard Chartered Bank for several years. Grace Awachi, Chief Finance Officer of the Bank Hospital. among a host of other corporate chiefs and strategy experts who deliver the lectures. Right, we're going to answer a few of your questions. Then the resource person continues with his original questions. When we end the program, we would answer the rest of your questions, or let me say before we end the program. Someone is asking, resource person, someone is asking, you spoke of the role of leadership. How does it actually help to shape a culture of operational efficiency? How does leadership help in shaping the culture of operational efficiency? Our August resource person, if you can kindly respond to this question, then we move on to a few. Apart from this, we will answer some 2 other questions, and then we revert to the moderator's questions, if you may.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are quite audible, sir.
Sure. Good. The role of the leadership, cannot be overemphasized in conversations that has to do with bringing strategy to life or delivering a promise to the customer. For a very simple reason, it is leadership that establishes the clarity, right? Because you are solving within a certain framework. And when we say, let's look at what the customer needs, the reality is we are solving what the customer needs in relation to what we want to achieve. And that what we want to achieve is leadership that establishes it. The second one is discipline. You cannot have standards that are not enforced. And so it is leadership that enforces the standards, or that ensures that the standards are enforced. If leadership is tolerant or overly tolerant, or what they are tolerant to, that is what becomes prevalent, and therefore that becomes the standard. And for which reason, leadership itself must be clear in its mind what it wants to tolerate, celebrate, and reward. Then the other point to make is that it is the consistency of leadership that reflects in the consistency of the standard. How consistent leadership is to the processes, the standards, and generally, in order that I don't repeat all the elements in there, generally how consistent leadership is in their commitment to operational excellence informs how sustained the focus is over time. And it is because it is not an event. If you do not sustain the focus over time, you may lose it, and therefore you become like just any other firm. It is therefore the consistent focus of leadership that ensures that it is embedded, it is integrated, and becomes part of the organizational culture. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Let's respond to one more question, and then we'll return to the moderator's questions before we address the rest of our August listeners' questions. And this question says, many organizations suffer from metric overload, as in measuring tool, metric overload. If you had to pick one leading indicator that proves operational excellence is actually driving corporate strategy, what would it be? If you had to choose one metric that is an indication or an indicator for how operational excellence is driving corporate strategy, which of the metrics would you be going for and why?
Thank you. And whilst this may vary depending on the industry, if you are a service company, any metrics that expresses or captures your responsiveness should be that kind of metrics we should be focusing on. I think in some industries, they would generally call it TAT, turnaround time, how quickly, how fast you respond to or address the customer's need. In other industries that are not necessarily service-driven, you would want to look at your defects or errors, product defects or errors, right? Because by the time you package the product, it gets to the final destination before they realize that the product is defective, then it is too late. The customer is getting disappointed. And therefore, if you want to measure something, put in a mechanism to identify your own proactive identification, which will be expressed in terms of the defects, the errors, becomes a relevant measure.
Very well. Thank you so much. There are a few other questions, but we would take them at the tail end of your presentation to us or your session with us. Let me get to my prepared questions as moderator. Not because probably I'm more important than our August listener, but we want to drive the conversation to achieve a certain purpose. And so I want to ask my next question that heavily borders on data and technology. And the question is simply, what do you consider as the role, or what role does technology actually play in achieving operational excellence?
Absolutely. Technology is a key enabler. In today's world, technology makes life easier, and therefore it is a key enabler. You use that to deliver that operational excellence to the customer. You build digital processes, you automate some things. That makes it easier and quicker for the customer to get the service or the product. And so that is how you use technology. Technology becomes a lever that then supports our objective to deliver product or service to the client quickly, reliably, and seamlessly. But that said, you cannot automate your bad process. You don't just apply technology and overlay it onto the existing process you are running. So the first step to adopting technology and adopting it well is for you to revise and simplify your process. Make sure that the process itself is optimized. It is only after that it becomes ideal to put technology on it to enable the efficiency of that process. Thank you.
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much. Let's look at the bit of people and culture in operational excellence. And I keep reminding our listeners that we are having this conversation within the larger spectrum of the company driving a strategic plan. The flamboyancy of, we have a 5-year strategy, a 10-year strategy, even a 3-year strategy, and you sometimes hire a consultant to help you put a document together. We look at the key strategic pillars. There's the focus areas out of which we develop goals, and then there are objectives and action plans. We say that we cannot have that strategy see the light of day unless the organization is operationally excellent or efficient. And for that matter, we say that if you are efficient operationally, chances are that becomes a huge competitive advantage to you. And we have seen even organizations in this country demonstrate that in various arenas. Is it about TV3 against GTV, or it's about VIP and how they had been operationally excellent, that had become a competitive advantage in the industry they play in. But let's look at a bit of people and culture. How important is culture in all of these conversations we are having, Adolf?
People's behavior and consistent behavior over time, what people repeatedly do, become the habit, it become the culture of the organization, particularly if it is tolerated and celebrated. Culture is critical in the conversation we are having. It sustains operational excellence, because you can design the best processes, but if the people don't own it, it will not work. If the people don't operate it the way it is designed, it will not work. And therefore, people and culture are key and central to the conversation of operational excellence. If staff are afraid to report inefficiency, for example, if there is a culture that does not encourage staff to report infractions, deviations, defects, you realize that almost every defect or deviation you pick up is coming from the customer, who you don't want the customer to be the one every time telling you things are not going on well. You should be able to self-identify, which puts you in a position to proactively address rather than the customer coming to tell you it is not in order. You know, we have had many instances where auto manufacturers in the West have themselves proactively recalled vehicles because they later identified some defects. Imagine if they are to wait for something to happen, then they come reporting or calling the customer, that becomes a disaster. And so the organizational culture is very important as a result. Similarly, and because of that, it requires accountability across the firm. Because if we drive a culture of accountability, a culture of ownership and responsibility, where also there is psychological safety to highlight problems or even challenge where necessary, it goes further to support. It becomes like a binder to all the pillars we had mentioned as relevant to operational excellence. So clearly, to summarize response to your question, people and culture is critical to the conversation of operational excellence.
Very well. Thank you so much for the useful lessons in backing up strategy with operations, sharing with us. Adolf, let me look at a very critical bit. A lot of these conversations we are having, I'm sure, is quite interesting to managers and corporate leaders that are, listening to us. But at the same time, you'll also agree with me that it may sound quite compelling, but sometimes a bit complex. Where do we start from? Probably that's the question on the mind of some people. In all of these things, yes, we have developed a strategy. Whether we did it internally, we hired a consultant to facilitate or even develop the strategy for the organization. We have an ambition. We develop a business model to ensure that we carry out ambition and meet it. Now it is time to back it up with operational activities. Where do we start from in order to be excellent operationally?
Okay, thank you. I'll walk us through a certain process that will help you or most of the colleagues on the call be able to, if they so mind, walk through a similar process and be able to improve their operational processes. Specifically that of bringing strategy to life or strategy execution may be a different conversation. But since the theme of the conversation has largely been around operational excellence, I'll proceed on that to address that, because there's a little bit of nuance when you talk specifically about strategy execution. But on the operational excellence specifically, one of the practical ways of doing it is don't think about the whole organization at once. Start simple. Focus on some specific areas. Identify some high impact processes. If I would even dare to say, identify one. Give yourself a task to say, every quarter, every month, depending on the scale and complexity of the organization, the amount of resource and spare time you can mobilize across the firm. It could be every month, every quarter, you identify one key high impact process. How do you know your key high impact process? Where are most of the revenue coming from? Where are most of the volumes coming from? Where are most of the complaints coming from? Where are most of the errors coming from? These becomes pointers that you can use. An additional lever becomes your own wild guess. Where do you think will be the next step for competition? What will be the game changer, which is a wild guess? That's why strategy really plays a heavy role in this wild guess. And so once you have identified that and you believe it's an area of significant potential to the firm, you then move into mapping out the processes in the end-to-end. One of the ways of doing that is do a process walkthrough currently and have around the table a cross-functional team, not just people who work in that department. Pick very ignorant people, very knowledgeable people, pick experts because you need people who ask the innocent questions that will let the experts think and scratch their head. You need people who are not already familiar with the process and therefore will not have presumptions about it. It helps them ask questions that then leads to, in an attempt to find answers to those questions, it leads to discoveries around what may be redundant and what may be required, what may need abandoning. And so that is a way of trying to redesign your process map from an end-to-end perspective. And in that journey, you identify the bottlenecks and you eliminate the non-value adding steps by all documentation, and you also define the performance measures or the measures that makes you know either the process is working or not working. And then you have a loop that comes back for you to drive continuous improvement. And so this is one way of looking at how to drive operational excellence. So you pick one particular critical process or high impact process, you go through this journey, you repeat it for another. So if you have about 5, 6, 7 critical high processes in your firm, you can take a month or a quarter, you do it for one. Once it's closed, you move to another and another. So over time, you will be able to drive a complete transformation of your organization through a gradual one at a time process, rather than looking at a big bang at the firm level. And that is where sometimes organizations are forced to draw on the time and expertise of consultants, even though they themselves are experts, are better positioned to be knowledgeable of their environment, their processes, and even their customers. Thank you.
Very well. A very quick follow-up on all of these, where to start from. What will you consider is the biggest risk, for instance, leaders should watch out for when you move that gear of operational excellence behind your strategy?
It's mainly resistance to change, and it can be across, even amongst leadership. Because leaders, we say leadership broadly, but leaders tend to have specific responsibility, right? They have a defined area of responsibility. So sometimes there may be tension around bringing it all together for a seamless cooperation to deliver the organizational objective. And so occasionally you may see that tension. Maybe on the ops floor, they've done the deep dive, they've identified what needs to be eliminated. But at the same time, to be able to eliminate that, they need some investment in perhaps technology or other processes, which maybe they need funding from another unit, finance or tech. If there is no cooperation and it's disjointed and it's not aligned, you realize that some people get more frustrated along the line. They just abandon it and it becomes like a failed initiative. So that is one. The other one is overcomplicating the solution. Most of the time, particularly matured organizations, because their processes have been informed by experiences of the past, there is hesitation. Often they tend to think that history knows better. That is why the processes are like that. And without accounting for the future, whether history knows better, yes, and whether what history knows is relevant for the future is not the evaluation that is often done. So that tends to be one of the significant barriers. So there needs to be an adoption of simplicity as a design principle. When it is too complex, you know that, no, it doesn't work for us. There are firms that today have defined then that a customer should not go through more than, say, 3 processes before they reach a service. Others have defined it to be 2. Others say you should not click our app more than 3 or 4 before you get what you want. So these are emerging ways of forcing the system to think and therefore avoid complication and to solution the clients the way they want to be solutioned. Remember when I gave the example of Always the customer needs something in particular. Anything in between is a means to an end. So the means to an end should not be a lot, and therefore shouldn't create obstacle on the path towards achieving what the customer wants. Thank you.
Loads of experiential knowledge there coming from the corporate chief, Adolf Berger. I know we are drawing near to a close or to the end of this program, but let me chip in this question, and then we look at some very critical questions coming from, I guess, some very experienced managers as part of our audience in this afternoon or this evening's engagement. Adolf, let's look at the leadership bit. I have been quite very tough on questions of leadership because I always tell my audience or managers who sit in my trainings that employees do not follow documented plans per se. They follow leaders. The leadership power thrown behind the document, it's what employees are following. So more often than not, it is not what we go to a Brie, Akosombo, Ada, those expensive hotels to go and develop, and then we come back to Accra. We call it, this is the strategic plan that is going to shape the organization's future for the next 5 to 10 years. It is normally the leadership power thrown behind that documented plan that normally sells. So my last question to you before we switch over to those critical questions from our audience is, what does it actually take from a leadership perspective to truly embed operational excellence in the organization? Since leadership is what sets the tone, what does it truly take?
We take, first of all, is the commitment, the leadership commitment. The leadership itself must be clear of where they want to get to, what they want to achieve, and therefore the commitment for operational excellence must be unquestionable. If it is realized that people realize this is what the leadership is tolerating, that becomes the standard. And I have said this a number of times. What the leaders tolerate become the standard. The second point to that, beyond a firm commitment and demonstration of support from the leadership, is around ability to build cross-functional team that work together with a commitment to the clients rather than their units or departments, right? And so that when there is a problem, they don't go finger pointing or blame sharing, oh, it's technology, it's front office. It's because there is a problem, the customer needs to be solution. It allows them to share the insight. People approach it with an open mind without being defensive. So that cross-functional team or multi-skilled team that then allows for a deep dive understanding of the customer and bringing all the expertise together to solution is key to it. The third one that I'll add is, I think I made a bit of comment on this earlier. Also, the courage to refine and reform the existing processes in order that they can leverage the current technology to drive enablement and improvement in how service is generally delivered. Oftentimes, there is love for the existing process. We want to hold it down, we want to keep it, but that then makes the journey to automate and adopt technology, which is quicker, faster, simpler, a lot more complex than it should be, and sometimes a lot more expensive. So these are the key elements I'll have to highlight if we are talking about how to deliver operational excellence from a leadership point of view.
Thank you so much indeed. Thank you for this rich knowledge you are sharing with us. We will be looking quickly at the questions that had come from, some quite critical questions from our August audience. But just as a gentle reminder, once again, this whole session is run by the Strategy Professionals Ghana. And if you are out there, either a strategy practitioner or you are in a senior managerial role or simply interested in strategy, you might want to reach out to us if you want to be a member of the Strategy Professionals Ghana. We are guided by 3 key objectives. Number 1 is continuous professional development in strategy. So we run webinars. So we run webinars like you are seeing now. We actually do in-house workshops in the areas of formulating strategy, strategic planning, how to do media reviews, competitive strategy, how technology is shaping the conduct of strategy. We organize breakfast meetings. We actually organize executive trips as well. So you may want to reach out on same line that I gave much earlier on, 0244 268672, and you will be guided. And for those of you who are listening to this conversation, well, how did we get here? Operational excellence is just a byproduct of the strategy. So first and foremost, if you are serious about management or climbing the corporate ladder, you may want to have advanced knowledge in strategy, from strategic planning to the formulation stage, to how to execute and control the strategy, how to communicate it and be sure that everybody gets aligned. And in our strategy course, you are taking through all the major strategic tools you might have heard of, especially in your NDA classes, but those are theoretical and may not know how to make use of those tools, from the Ansoff metrics to the GE McKinsey, the Potter's 5 forces, to external factor evaluation analysis, to how to conduct industry analysis, Potter's generic strategy, etc. And we help you to appreciate strategy options at the corporate level, growth expansion, consolidation, stability strategy, down to retrenchment or diversity, then to the business unit level, from the cost leadership strategy to the differentiation strategy to the focus strategy, and how to align functional choices to all of these conversations. You have to seriously be in a management position, or you are a professional in one area or another to qualify to take any of our programs. But the background doesn't matter, whether you are coming from finance, operations, HR, marketing, banking, non-profit. We've had several non-profit guys from the government sector, NGOs, and then also, of course, the profit firms study with us. Let me take a couple of questions after which, and let me plead that, please, those of you who send in questions with loads of abbreviations, there are so many meanings to what you understand as the abbreviation. So please come again with the full meaning. I don't know what you mean by the abbreviation you are writing to us. Okay, so come clear. Don't be doing abbreviations. It becomes difficult to appreciate what you mean. Here we go. Somebody actually is asking a question on how African businesses, and for me, that is really my passion. My passion is on African businesses. How African businesses can leverage operational excellence to compete globally. Any thought to share on that? How can we have African businesses leverage operational excellence to compete globally?
Thank you. I'm not sure it should be specifically African businesses, businesses in general, right? Because the high standards of performance across the world, if you are to compete, you hold yourself to the same high standards. And the how is what we are discussing here. The philosophy underlining the conversation of operational efficiency across the world came from operational excellence across the world came from Toyota, largely based on how they, along the line, came to improve and modified their production processes such that it gave them a competitive edge across the world, and the rest of the auto manufacturers were forced to learn what they were doing. So if we are discussing that today, it means that we are discussing the same philosophy and principles that are making firms elsewhere successful. So it's a simple matter of, one, customer centricity. Let's be genuinely committed to the customer. In another conversation, I was saying 2 firms can be committed, say they are customer centric. You order 2 restaurants, you order food from them, you have a complaint that maybe something about the food is not good, and they acknowledge it. They say, one says, bring the food, I'll change it for you. The other says, where are you? I'm really sorry. I'll send someone to bring you a replacement right now. Both firms are talking about customer centricity. How they manifest it is different, and therefore it will reflect in how successful or otherwise they become. The other bit is around the process efficiency. If we improve our processes, we can actually reduce some of the cost elements we carry in the process. I think from a government point of view, if we simplify some of the approval processes, we make things predictable, standardization authorities, certifying on time, all those things build up cost for firms. So if we can generally streamline, then that becomes another way of driving a competitive advantage. Then there is the one about labor cost, right? I think the biggest area that countries like Ghana struggle with is around labor costs relative to, because the question is about competing with the world, relative to Asia and therefore Southeast Asia in general. That I do not have an answer how we will bring our labor costs down, because everyone wants to be paid more. In fact, despite despite the complaint by firms of high labor costs, employees are also complaining of low wages, and so it becomes a challenge. And when we say China is producing for the world, it's a combination of labor and technology that is letting them get there. It's easy relatively to perhaps solve the technology one, but principally we need to find a way to bring our production costs down in order to be as competitive as any of those Asian countries who are producing for the world. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We have just about 7 minutes. The session is supposed to come to an end at 5:30. And so we will take some 3 more questions, I guess, if time allows us, and then we would end. This question, it sounds a bit academic. It says, can you share a bit on operational efficiency vis-a-vis operational excellence? Technically, the person is seeking to know your view on the difference between operational efficiency as against operational excellence.
Okay, sure. Operational excellence is a broader umbrella that includes, if you listen, I spoke about people, I spoke about leadership, I spoke about some strategy and strategy alignment, values. So all these together build into operational excellence. But when you talk of operational efficiency, it is often focused on delivering more at a particular cost base or delivering the same output at a lower cost base. And so that is often the focus of operational efficiency. It looks like, what existing resources do I have? What can I do to get more out of this resource? I think what may be lacking in operational excellence sometimes, efficiency as compared to operational excellence, is operational excellence's emphasis on the customer. Everything under operational excellence is done from the perspective of delivering value to the customer. Whilst for operational efficiency, as much as still that may be a part of the delivery, the focus is often more on you have a given cost base, you want to generate more output out of it. You have a given output to deliver, you want to deliver it at a lower cost than you have done it in the past. The choices that may lead you to may be a bit different. So in that case, the value is accruing to the firm and not necessarily the customer.
Very well, thank you. Someone is commending you. Great presentation. And this question is important to me because at least it's coming from an environment of non-profits. He wants you to shed some light on how to apply this practically in the public sector, for instance? How can some of these operational excellence information you are sharing be applied in a public sector institution? Any ideas for the fellow?
Yeah, the principles remain the same. The public sector institution must identify its critical services, processes, or high impact processes or services. Some public sector institutions may be service providers, some not necessarily, but whatever team, department, company, or institution you are, there are some key things you are supposed to deliver. And as part of delivering it, there are some critical processes that you undertake or activities that you undertake. You need to identify them. Ask yourself that these processes that we are running, are they all relevant given the level of technology available? Sometimes just even beyond public sector, you go somewhere, they take your Ghana card, then they give you a form that is asking all the information that the Ghana card is supposed to have given them. And you go to another area, the people are asking you almost the same information that you are supposed to have captured on the form. So it means perhaps that time you are investing in completing that form may not be that relevant. Indeed, if it is relevant for processing your information, then they may not have attended their mind to it. So there are several things like that, that as you go, you do the process walk through, you will be able to identify, to say, no, let's change this, let's improve that, let's adopt this. The objective is to make the customers, in this case, the public, our life better. One area we know we've always heard, the no bed issues, you go to hospital, the processes you go through. There's a lot of improvement that we can apply some of these processes to. Particularly there's 6 or 7 pillars that I highlighted to address. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, our August resource person, and to every one of you. Don't sign off yet. Truth is that we would have wished to answer all of your questions. There are quite a number of questions, but unfortunately, time will not allow us to respond to all of them. But you can continue to interact with us on our hotline, 0244 2686 72, 0244 2686 72. And on behalf of every one of us, I want to say a big thank you to our resource person and to you too for joining today's webinar. These programs run on monthly basis. Some, I can mention, are breakfast meetings, some are full-blown workshops, and some are also conversations around the pool in the evenings. Once you become a part of us, you get to enjoy all of this. We are looking forward to having most of you here sign up for our professional certification in strategy. It's starting on May 23. Registration is ongoing now. And as I mentioned, it's weekend tuition only, either Saturday physical or Sunday online. You can switch between the two options. Once you reach out to the same number, 0244 2686 72, you are on. There's a critical question here, but time will not allow. You say, how do you make individual leaders become excellently capable before allowing them to drive operational strategy? Charlie, enroll those your managers in our executive leadership course, and then they will have the opportunity to become more efficient so they can drive strategy that cascades down to operational excellence within the organization. On this note, from the Strategy Professionals Ghana and the Institute of Leadership and Strategy, we want to say a big thank you to you all for your time, as we look forward to either having you in our class or engaging you once more next month by this same platform. Thank you, and do have a good evening.
Distinguished executive strategy leaders, industry captains, and of course, fellow professionals, we would like to warmly welcome all of you. In our traditional parlance, we say Akwaba. Tonight, it's not just an inauguration of an association, but we are activating a movement that will dictate the pace and the direction of this country and the continent as a whole.
This evening is a response to a simple research document I came across. And that Boston Consulting Group's research sought to suggest that managers at the lower level have as much as 72% of them not understanding or appreciating what strategy is. And we thought that we could respond to that gap, that shortfall. That is our greatest motivation for bringing together practitioners of strategy to advance the cause of strategy practice, particularly in corporate Africa.
By developing managers and professionals and executives in business strategy, from strategic leadership to strategic planning to strategy development to control. That is one key thematic area we don't joke with in the executive class, strategy control. At this juncture, we want to do a launch of the Professional Association. Officially, the name is Strategy Professionals Ghana.
4, 3, 2, 1. This is SPG.
Looking forward to having organizations build giant businesses in Africa. And we thought that one of the greatest tools we could use to do that is when there is key strategy knowledge among leaders who drive these organizations.